Alright, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about Berserk 1997. And as you guys can see right here, and up there on my bookshelf, I am a huge Berserk fan. And I recently did a full rewatch of Berserk 1997, and I wanted to give my take on it. And I posed the question, does Berserk 1997 still hold up? Can you recommend this to new people and people still be able to enjoy it with the way that new animes are coming out today with the high quality and the new forms of storytelling? Does Berserk 97 still hold up with the anime of today? Now, if we're talking about the source material alone, the manga alone, it has one of the greatest stories of all time, arguably the best villain in all of media and fiction out there. The source material itself has a lot of greatness to it that this anime could have pulled from, and they've done it multiple times. Berserk 97, you have the Berserk movies, you have Berserk 2016, you have some video games out there as well. They've tried multiple times to get this thing right, and if we're going to focus on Berserk 1997, to answer the question, I will say no, it does not hold up and it has not stood the test of time. And I actually recommend the movies to people trying to get into Berserk. One of my closest friends out there, he was trying to get into Berserk a few years ago, and I made him watch the movies over the 97 anime. And I'm about to give you guys my reasons as to why the 97 anime is not as good as we all thought. So let's start off with the pacing of the show.
You were stronger?
Don't be ridiculous. He's no match for our leader. Isn't that right, Griffith?
Evacuate this fort.
All right. We had a good run. 3 months isn't bad when no one thought we would last 3 days.
And we helped the Fife Lord escape.
Yeah, we gave them their money's worth.
The pacing in Berserk 97 is not good, simply and plain. If you look at the manga starts with the Black Swordsman arc, and then it shows Young Guts, and then from there on, I feel like it just has a constant, good rhythm to it where, they go from battle to battle, moving up the Band of the Hawk, while also developing each character in the Band of the Hawk. And I feel like it was a relatively quick time in the manga, but in the show, it just doesn't feel that way. The show is kind of held back by the establishing shots where it'll be showing the mountains for 5 to 10 seconds out of nowhere, or it'll be 2 characters in a scene where they'll literally stand still for a few seconds and no talking will go by. And then the conversations that the characters actually have themselves, I'm not an expert when it comes to Berserk, so I may be wrong when I say this, but I feel like the conversations, they probably added a little bit more dialogue than was in the actual manga, because this show is just slow. It has a very slow pace to it. And this actually affects the battles themselves. The battles are a huge part of the Golden Age arc of Berserk. Berserk 97 covers the Golden Age arc, so I feel like you have to hit hard and you have to make sure you get everything right on the big battles, and the battles in the show are slow. And I guess I've alluded to it enough. Let's talk about the animation in the show. So many fights where characters will literally use the same motion over and over and over again.
Strikes and rush forward with his sword drawn. There's no reason for him to risk his weapon like that. He is protecting me.
The battlefield is a sacred place. It is for men.
I understand that the animation was limited at its time, especially with it being, 1997, but I mean, if I'm gonna look at it from a critical lens, you just have to point out how the animation definitely holds back the show. It takes away a lot of the impact of the battles, and I understand that the animators probably did as best as they could with the amount of time and material that they had, but it just doesn't hold up to this day. Now let's talk about the vibe and the atmosphere. I believe that the atmosphere here in Berserk is just wrong. When I think of Berserk, I get this scary, mysterious type of feel every time I think about it. And I know a lot of that stuff comes later on after the Golden Age arc, but I feel like even the Golden Age arc had a lot of undertones to it that added a deep eeriness to you, you know, deep down inside. Regardless of if you started with the Black Swordsman or if you skipped the Black Swordsman arc at the beginning, I still feel like Berserk has that mysterious vibe to it. And you get that with Nosferatu Zod. It gets you questioning, you know, what is he? Where did he come from? What is his purpose? Griffith throughout the entire show, I feel like they did a pretty good job, especially the voice actor, with kind of not really letting you know what he was thinking all the time inside of his head. So I feel like they kept Griffith pretty mysterious, and as I said, Nosferatu Zod, that was mysterious. But outside of that, there weren't that many undertones of, you know, topics that made you wonder what could happen next. You know, especially when you get to the eclipse, that's supposed to be this gigantic moment where it changes the entire show, but I feel like it doesn't hit the same when you haven't properly built up that eerie, scary sort of undertone in the story beforehand. And since I just mentioned it, let's talk about the eclipse. I believe that this eclipse is terrible in Berserk 97.
Then shut your damn mouth! No, it's not possible.
Out of all of the adaptations out there that showcase the eclipse, I feel like it's done the worst here. The death scenes don't really feel emotional. I like the voice actors throughout most of the series, but I felt like they could have went harder towards the end. The Corcus scene was kind of confusing. Even when I first watched it a few years ago, I didn't understand what was going on. And even on a rewatch right now, it was still kind of hard to understand what was really going down. And then other character deaths, it just felt like, oh, that character died, and there wasn't much weight or impact to it. The animation in the eclipse was better than it was for most of the show, so I'll give it that. But the voice acting, I feel like outside of Guts and members of the God Hand, could have used a lot of work. The music as well in the eclipse and throughout the entire show, I feel like could have been used way more. If you guys go and listen to the Berserk soundtrack, it has some amazing music. You have Guts theme, you have the God Hands theme. There are so many great, fantastic, different versions of music in this show, and I feel like the show just doesn't use it that often. They use Guts song over and over, and then there's this song, if I find it, I'll play it here. There's a song that they played during a lot of political scenes. And I feel like those were the main two songs that were used throughout the show, and it's a travesty because Berserk has some great music and they didn't really showcase it all the way. And the Eclipse definitely could have used some more epic songs to be put in there. And the God Hand song was pretty cool, but again, they don't use it that much. I feel like they held back on some of the gore, which I understand why, because nobody wants to really see all of that. But if you're gonna make an adaptation over something like Berserk, Berserk literally goes all the way there in terms of gore. So if you're gonna make that adaptation, I feel like you just can't hold back. Even on the Casca scene, once Guts gets pinned down, you see it for like 2 seconds and then that's about it. Again, I understand why they don't want to put that in there, but again, it's Berserk. Berserk goes all the way there. And I'm not trying to rag on the Eclipse too much, but I just feel like the Berserk movies did it way better than it was done in the 1997 anime. Something else that I can mention, the introduction of the God Hand was weak, in my personal opinion, in the 97 anime. And then also something else, building right before the Eclipse, there are key, and I mean key, major missing characters that are not in the actual anime. I'll say the only really good part that I liked about the Eclipse scene in Berserk was Pippin.
Pippin, you're still alive. Pippin!
And the last and final part that I will mention is the history of the world. In the manga, I feel like you kind of get a clear understanding of most of the things that are happening and things that happened in the past. They don't explicitly tell you every single thing because they do want to leave a little bit of mystery out there, but at the same time, they do give you a rough understanding of the world. And I feel like Berserk 97 doesn't really do a good job at explaining where we are, why the battles we're fighting are important, and what the future holds. So that's basically everything that I have to say I still love Berserk 1997. As a Berserk fan, if I'm not being critical of it, obviously I still think it's one of the, greatest things out there. But if we're trying to introduce this to a new Berserk fan or looking at it from a critical lens, Berserk 97 doesn't make the cut.